The evening sky glowed with soft shades of purple and blue as luxury cars lined the long circular driveway leading to the city's most prestigious charity gala. Bright spotlights swept across the elegant entrance while photographers called out the names of famous actors, successful entrepreneurs, celebrated athletes, and influential politicians. Every guest seemed to wear clothing worth more than the average family's yearly income. Diamonds sparkled beneath the lights, expensive watches reflected every camera flash, and laughter echoed through the grand marble courtyard. It was the kind of event where appearances mattered almost as much as generosity, where every smile seemed carefully rehearsed and every handshake carried hidden ambition. Behind the glamorous decorations, however, one simple invitation was about to expose the difference between status and character. Standing quietly near the edge of the entrance was Daniel Carter, a 38-year-old single father whose calm expression hid years of sacrifice. He wore a neatly pressed navy blue suit that had been tailored many years earlier and carefully maintained despite its age. His polished black shoes showed faint signs of wear, but they were spotless. His short black hair was neatly combed, and his clean-shaven face carried the quiet confidence of a man who had learned to survive life's hardest storms without asking for sympathy. His invitation rested carefully inside his jacket pocket, protected as though it were something priceless. It was not an invitation he had requested or expected. It had been personally sent by 10-year-old Lily, the daughter of one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. Daniel had hesitated for days before accepting because he knew he did not belong to this world of luxury, but he also knew how much the invitation meant to the little girl who had insisted he attend. Months earlier, Daniel had met Lily under circumstances that neither of them would ever forget. During a violent thunderstorm, a frightening accident had nearly changed her life forever. While others froze in panic, Daniel had acted without hesitation, risking his own safety to protect a frightened child he had never met before. He never asked who she was or whether her family was wealthy. He simply saw a scared little girl who needed help. After emergency crews arrived, Daniel quietly disappeared before anyone could thank him properly. Lily never forgot his kindness, and ever since that day she had insisted that her biggest hero was not a celebrity or a billionaire but the humble father who expected nothing in return. As Daniel slowly walked toward the grand staircase leading to the ballroom entrance, he noticed the difference between himself and everyone else. Groups of wealthy guests exchanged confident smiles while discussing million-dollar investments, luxury vacations, and exclusive business partnerships. Some glanced toward Daniel with polite curiosity, while others barely hid expressions of confusion. They silently wondered how someone dressed so simply had received an invitation to such an exclusive gathering. Daniel noticed the looks but ignored them. Years of raising his young son alone had taught him that dignity did not depend on the opinions of strangers. Every difficult choice, every overtime shift, every sleepless night caring for his family had built a strength that expensive suits could never purchase. At the top of the staircase stood security officers carefully checking every invitation before allowing guests inside. Daniel patiently waited his turn. When he reached the front, he politely handed over his invitation. The guard studied it for a moment before nodding respectfully, surprised to see that it carried special authorization from the CEO's own daughter. Just as the officer prepared to welcome Daniel inside, an unexpected voice interrupted the moment. The CEO herself, Victoria Harrington, stepped from a group of executives near the entrance. At 46 years old, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute control. Her elegant silver evening gown shimmered beneath the lights, and every conversation nearby immediately stopped as people recognized her presence. She glanced toward Daniel, then toward the invitation in the guard's hand. Her expression changed instantly from polite curiosity to unmistakable disapproval. She walked closer, studying Daniel from head to toe without saying a word for several long seconds. Around them, conversations faded as nearby guests sensed that something unusual was unfolding. Victoria finally asked the guard where the invitation had come from. When she learned that Lily had personally requested Daniel's attendance, disbelief crossed her face. She could not understand why her daughter would invite someone who looked, in her opinion, completely out of place among the city's elite. Without asking Daniel a single question or giving him the chance to explain, Victoria made a cold decision. She calmly instructed security that the invitation must have been a mistake and ordered them not to allow him into the ballroom. Her voice remained controlled, but every word carried enough authority to silence the entire entrance. Guests nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances while photographers quietly turned their cameras toward the growing scene. Daniel stood perfectly still, holding his invitation in his hand, stunned by the humiliation unfolding before him. One security officer hesitated, knowing the invitation appeared completely genuine. Another looked at Daniel with sympathy but understood that refusing the CEO's direct order could cost him his job. The atmosphere became painfully tense. Every eye at the entrance focused on the single father standing alone against a wall of wealth and influence. Daniel could have argued. He could have revealed the story of how he had once saved Lily's life. He could have demanded that someone call the young girl to confirm the invitation. Instead, he simply looked at the invitation one final time, folded it carefully, and slipped it back into his jacket pocket. His pride had been wounded, but his character remained untouched. Without raising his voice or showing anger, he thanked the confused security officers for their professionalism and quietly turned toward the exit. As he slowly walked away from the glowing entrance, camera flashes followed him into the darkness. None of the guests realized they were watching the departure of the very man whose courage had made the evening possible. Inside the ballroom, Lily happily prepared for the biggest speech of her young life, completely unaware that the hero she had invited with all her heart had just been turned away by the person she trusted most. Inside the magnificent ballroom, elegance filled every corner. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in warm light, reflecting from polished marble floors and towering glass walls that overlooked the glittering city skyline. Hundreds of beautifully decorated tables surrounded an enormous stage covered with white flowers, golden accents, and enormous digital screens displaying the logo of the Harrington Foundation. Soft orchestral music drifted through the air while distinguished guests enjoyed fine dining and quiet conversations about business, philanthropy, and success. Everything about the evening appeared flawless. The audience believed they were about to witness another carefully planned celebration of wealth, generosity, and prestige. No one realized that within a few minutes, a 10-year-old girl would completely change the purpose of the gala. Behind the velvet curtains, Lily Harrington stood patiently with a folded sheet of paper in her hands. She wore a beautiful ivory-colored dress decorated with delicate silver embroidery that sparkled under the backstage lights. Her long brown hair had been carefully styled into soft curls, and a simple silver ribbon rested above one shoulder. Although she looked every bit like the daughter of one of the country's most powerful business leaders, her thoughts were not focused on the glamorous audience waiting beyond the curtain. She was thinking only about one person. Before walking onto the stage, she quietly asked one of the event assistants whether Daniel had arrived. The assistant smiled confidently and assured her that every invited guest had been welcomed. Comforted by the answer, Lily took a deep breath, believing that the man she admired most was already somewhere among the audience. The master of ceremonies welcomed everyone with an inspiring introduction about compassion, leadership, and the importance of helping others. He praised Victoria Harrington's achievements as a visionary CEO whose charitable foundation had transformed countless lives. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Victoria stood gracefully to acknowledge their admiration. Cameras flashed continuously while journalists documented every moment of the prestigious event. Everything unfolded exactly according to schedule. The presenter then announced the highlight of the evening. He explained that Victoria's daughter wished to deliver a special message about kindness and courage from the perspective of a child whose life had been forever changed by an extraordinary act of selflessness. The audience smiled warmly, expecting a touching speech that would reflect positively on the Harrington family's charitable image. Few anticipated anything beyond a carefully rehearsed presentation. As Lily stepped onto the brightly illuminated stage, the entire ballroom erupted into applause. She smiled politely, adjusted the microphone, and looked across the sea of elegant faces stretching from the front row to the back of the enormous hall. For a brief moment, she searched the audience with quiet excitement, expecting to see Daniel smiling back at her. Instead, she found only unfamiliar faces. She looked again, more carefully this time. Her smile slowly disappeared. She searched every table one by one, recognizing executives, celebrities, politicians, athletes, family friends, and business partners, yet the one face she hoped to find was nowhere in the room. A feeling of uncertainty settled over her. She unfolded the speech she had prepared but could not focus on the words. She lifted her eyes once more and continued searching every corner of the ballroom. Her breathing became slower as confusion replaced excitement. Finally, Lily spoke into the microphone. She softly asked if Daniel Carter had arrived. The audience exchanged puzzled glances. Many assumed Daniel must be another wealthy donor or honored guest delayed somewhere inside the venue. Receiving no answer, Lily repeated his name more clearly. Silence spread across the ballroom. Victoria's confident expression began to fade. Several event coordinators hurried toward one another, whispering anxiously while checking guest lists and seating charts. Security personnel near the entrance exchanged uncertain looks through their communication devices. No one wanted to interrupt the program, yet it was obvious something unexpected had happened. Lily remained standing at the microphone. She quietly explained that she could not continue her speech until Daniel was there because the entire message had been written for him. The audience became completely silent. Every camera immediately focused on the young girl. Television crews broadcasting the gala live adjusted their lenses to capture every expression. Journalists lowered their notebooks, sensing that the evening had suddenly become something entirely different from what anyone had expected. Victoria slowly rose from her seat and attempted to reassure her daughter with a gentle smile, encouraging her to continue the speech anyway. Lily respectfully shook her head. She explained that the person she wanted to honor had once saved her life without asking for recognition, reward, or even thanks. Everything she had prepared to say was about him. Speaking without him present would make the entire evening meaningless. Guests leaned forward with growing curiosity. Business leaders who had spent decades building powerful reputations listened in complete silence. Some quietly wondered why they had never heard this story before. Others looked toward Victoria, expecting her to explain who Daniel was. Instead, Victoria remained unusually quiet. A growing sense of uneasiness spread across her face as memories of the entrance replayed in her mind. She remembered the man standing respectfully with a simple invitation in his hand. She remembered dismissing him without asking a single question. She remembered ordering security to turn him away because she believed he did not belong among the elite guests. At that moment, the horrifying truth began to settle into her heart. The man she had publicly humiliated was the very person her daughter considered the greatest hero in her life. Her confident posture weakened. The applause, laughter, and glamorous atmosphere that had filled the ballroom only minutes earlier disappeared completely. The audience watched Victoria carefully, sensing that she knew far more than she wished to admit. Lily looked toward her mother with innocent confusion and quietly asked whether Daniel had been invited exactly as she had requested. Victoria could not answer immediately. Every second of silence seemed longer than the last. The entire ballroom waited. The cameras continued broadcasting live. Hundreds of distinguished guests held their breath as the truth slowly emerged. For the first time in many years, the most powerful woman in the room realized that no amount of influence, wealth, or authority could protect her from the consequences of judging someone's worth by appearance instead of character.